The barn was cold, though the desert outside burned hot. Dust hung in the air like ash from a dying fire, settling on broken planks and rusted nails. A lantern swung from a crooked beam, its light weak and trembling. Beneath it she knelt, wrists bound, a coarse sack pulled tight over her head. Her breath rattled, shallow and sharp, each gasp carrying the taste of burlap and blood. Boots scraped against the dirt, heavy, deliberate. The man who wore them reeked of whiskey and spite. Her stepfather, his shadow loomed across her trembling frame. He crouched low, one hand gripping her jaw through the sack. "You ain't worth spit," he hissed, his voice slurred but cruel. "A burden, a curse, nothing but dead weight." She flinched as the back of his hand cracked against her cheek, the sound echoing against barn walls. A muffled cry slipped out, weak but defiant. The sack muffled her words, yet he heard enough. "My heart's long dead," she whispered. He froze, lips curling in disgust. "Dead, huh? Then rot here. Coyotes'll sing over your bones before dawn." With a shove, he sent her crashing onto the dirt floor. The lantern swayed harder, throwing shadows that twisted like demons on the walls. His boots turned, scraping toward the door. Hinges groaned as he stepped out into the night, leaving her bound, breathless, and alone. The silence that followed was worse than his voice. Only the distant moan of the wind moved through the cracks of the barn. She tried to wriggle free, rope biting into her wrists, but the more she fought, the tighter it held. Tears soaked the sack, streaking hot across her skin. Far off, hooves struck the earth. Slow, steady, measured. A lone rider moved beneath a blood-red sunset, his broad hat shadowing his eyes. The rancher. He guided his horse across the ridge, unaware of the cruelty lying just a few miles ahead. Inside the barn, the girl lay still, chest heaving, her whisper broken and desperate clung to the air. "My heart's long dead." The lantern sputtered, darkness crept in, and the story of her salvation had only just begun. The desert was merciless that day. The sun burned white, hammering down on the earth until the sand shimmered like molten glass. A hawk circled above, its cry cutting through the stillness. Beneath that sky he dragged her, bound, beaten and faceless beneath the filthy sack. Her stepfather's grip was iron around her arm, yanking her forward until her knees buckled against stones. She stumbled, skin tearing on the grit, but he only laughed, a hollow, whiskey-soaked sound. "Stand up," he barked, jerking her higher. "Don't matter if you walk or crawl, you're done either way." When they reached an old fence post, half buried and splintering in the sand, he shoved her hard against it. Rope dug into her wrists as he tied her fast, each knot pulled tight with deliberate cruelty. She coughed against the sack, the fabric damp with her sweat, the smell of blood sharp inside it. Her lips cracked, and when she tried to beg, her voice came out raw, broken. "Please, don't leave me here." He leaned close, spitting tobacco into the dust. His breath stank of rot and hatred. "Coyotes'll do what I should have done long ago," he sneered. "They'll chew you up piece by piece, and I'll raise a glass while they sing." He stepped back, surveying her like a rancher eyeing worthless stock. Then he turned, boots crunching through the sand, his figure shrinking into the horizon. She was alone. Alone with the sun that blistered her skin, with the sack that smothered her breath, with the silence that screamed louder than any voice. Her head drooped, the weight unbearable. She whispered into the darkness of the sack, "My heart's long dead." A tumbleweed rolled past, carried by a bitter gust. It brushed the base of the post, fragile and fleeting, and kept moving, as though mocking her helplessness. Her body sagged against the ropes. Vultures, black-winged and patient, began circling above. The ground felt like fire beneath her knees. Her prayers slipped into the dust, too faint for any ear to hear. The outlaw's laughter still lingered in the wind, but far off, beyond the dunes and the circling birds, another sound stirred, the slow, steady beat of hooves. Hope, faint and distant, was riding closer. The vultures circled lower now, their black wings slicing through the white sky. The desert seemed to hold its breath, waiting for death to finish its cruel work. Then came the sound, faint at first, like thunder far away. Hooves striking against the baked earth, steady, measured, a rider drawing near. The rancher sat tall in his saddle, his weathered face shadowed beneath the brim of his hat. He slowed his horse as his eyes caught the sight that twisted his gut, a lone figure slumped against a half-rotted fence post. He dismounted, boots sinking into the hot sand, spurs clinking softly. Dust lifted with each step as he moved closer. His hand brushed the revolver at his hip, cautious before he realized what he was looking at. A girl, bound, sack over her head, barely breathing. "Dear Lord," he muttered, voice tight. He crouched low, the creak of his leather coat loud in the silence. His rough hands, scarred from years of ranch work, trembled as he reached for the knots. The rope burned his fingers, but he pulled harder, determined. With a sharp tug, the last strand gave way. He lifted the sack. The sight struck him like a bullet. Her face was bruised, lips split, dirt streaked with blood, eyes swollen, yet flickering faintly with life. He drew back for a moment, chest heavy, before whispering, "Lord, have mercy." Her eyelids fluttered, lashes clinging to tears. A single breath escaped her cracked lips. "My heart's long dead." The words sliced him deeper than any canes. "Be so." "No, girl," he said softly, voice steady now. "Not while I still draw breath." She tried to shake her head, too weak. A cough rattled her chest. He moved quickly, sliding one arm beneath her knees and the other around her back. She was light, too light, as though the desert had already started to claim her. He carried her to his horse, every step pressing his boots deeper into the sand. With care, he lifted her into the saddle, climbing up behind her. He held her steady against him, whispering, "You're safe now. I'll see to it." The horse snorted, hooves pounding against the earth as it carried them away from death's shadow. The vultures scattered, their feast denied. And for the first time in days, the girl's whisper carried something more than despair. It carried a flicker of hope. The cabin sat quiet at the edge of the valley, its lantern light glowing faint against the rising storm. The rancher pushed the door open with his shoulder, boots scraping against the worn wood floor as he carried her inside. Rain had begun to fall, pattering against the tin roof, each drop like a drumbeat in the silence. He laid her gently on the straw bed near the hearth. The fire had burned low, embers glowing red like the last breath of a dying day. He grabbed kindling, fed the flames until warmth filled the room, shadows dancing against the log walls. Her body trembled, soaked in sweat and dust. He dipped a rag into a basin of cool water, wrung it out and pressed it softly against her bruised face. She flinched, lips parting with a sharp breath. "It's all right," he said, voice steady, calm. "Ain't no harm gonna reach you here." She turned her head weakly, eyes still cautious, searching. Why'd you stop?" He shook his head, wringing the rag again. "No one deserves to be left for the buzzards, not you." Her hands, bound too long, shook as he untied the last of the rope. The marks around her wrists were raw and red like brands. She cradled them close to her chest, whispering, "He'll come for me." The rancher's jaw tightened. He pulled a quilt from the trunk, draping it over her shoulders. "Then let him. He'll find more than he bargained for." Cinematic silence stretched. The fire popped. Outside, wind howled through the cracks of the shutters. She stared at the bread he laid by her side, hesitant, as if kindness were foreign. Finally, hunger overcame fear. She tore a piece, chewing slow, eyes glistening as though every bite betrayed the memory of her suffering. He sat back in the chair near the bed, hat in his lap, watching her with a quiet resolve. The cabin, once lonely, now felt like a sanctuary. For the first time since her ordeal began, her shoulders eased, just slightly. The rain softened against the roof, the storm passing. And in that fragile silence, hope whispered through the room, as faint as the crackle of fire, but alive. The saloon was thick with smoke that night, lanterns glowing dim through a haze of whiskey breath and cigar ash. Laughter rattled against the cracked walls, but it wasn't joy, just the hollow bark of men too drunk to feel the weight of their sins. The door swung open with a violent slam. Boots struck the floorboards heavy, spurs jangling like chains. Her stepfather staggered inside, coat damp with rain, eyes bloodshot from liquor. "Whiskey," he growled, slapping a silver coin on the counter. His voice carried, sharp and venomous. "And keep it comin'." The bartender poured with trembling hands. The outlaw lifted the glass, downed it in one pull, then leaned on the counter with a grin that curdled blood. "Girl's gone," he spat to the room, loud enough for all to hear. "Left her for the coyotes. They're picking her clean by now." A murmur swept through the saloon. Men shifted in their seats, uneasy. One old ranch hand glanced at another, whispering low. "Didn't you hear?" Feller said Tom Callahan, the rancher, rode off this morning, and with someone slumped over his saddle. The outlaw's grin died. His eyes narrowed, jaw grinding. He slammed the empty glass against the counter, shards flying. "What did you say?" His voice cut like a knife. The ranch hand stammered. Nothing, just what folks been talking." The outlaw grabbed him by the collar, dragging him halfway across the table. "You tell me straight. She alive?" Silence. The piano stopped mid-song. Only the storm outside dared to speak. The ranch hand's voice broke. "Ain't my business, but... yeah. Word is she's safe. With Callahan." The outlaw's face twisted, veins rising on his neck. He shoved the man back into his seat and stormed toward the door. His pistol clinked in its holster, his boots pounding like drums of war. He paused at the threshold, rain cutting sharp against his face. "If that old rancher thinks he can keep what's mine," he snarled, "he's got another thing coming." The door slammed shut behind him. Miles away, at the quiet cabin, she stirred from uneasy sleep, clutching the quilt close. Her eyes darted to the window as the wind shifted. "He'll come for me," she whispered. The rancher, sitting by the fire with his rifle across his knees, didn't flinch. His voice was low, steady as stone. "Let him try." Morning broke gray and heavy, the storm's trail still clinging to the town like a bad dream. Mud puddled in the ruts of wagon wheels, dogs barked at the slow roll of clouds, and a church bell tolled once, hollow in the distance. The rancher rode steady into town, the girl clinging faintly behind him, her small hands gripping his coat. He dismounted outside the sheriff's office, boots striking wet boards with purpose. The girl slid down into his arms, her face hidden beneath the brim of his coat. Folks on the street stopped what they were doing. Whispers rose like wind through dry grass. "That her?" a voice murmured. "Heard she was left for dead," another answered. The rancher ignored them. He pushed open the office door. It groaned wide, revealing Sheriff Daniels behind a desk, lamp burning low, a wanted poster in his weathered hands. He looked up, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the girl. "Shut the door," the sheriff said. The rancher obeyed, guiding her to the chair by the desk. She sat stiff, trembling, her eyes darting across the shadows of the room. "Tell me," the sheriff said, voice deep as gravel. She hesitated, lips trembling. The rancher crouched by her side, speaking softly. "You're safe here. Speak if you can." Her voice broke like glass. "He tied me, left me for the coyotes, sack over my head, said I was nothing, said he'd sell me if death didn't take me first." The sheriff's jaw set hard. He leaned back, the chair creaking, lantern light flickered across his lined face. "That man's been trouble a long time," he muttered. "Cards, drink, fists. But this..." His eyes hardened. "This is worse." He rose, pulling down his hat. "I'll watch him. Won't be easy. Men like him got venom in their veins. But the law'll stand." The rancher nodded once, his hand resting on the girl's shoulder. She swallowed, voice shaking. "He won't stop. He'll come again." The sheriff's gaze met hers, steady and unyielding. "Then we'll be ready." Outside, the clouds began to break, sunlight spilling faintly across the muddy street. For the first time, she looked toward it with a flicker of something fragile, the shape of hope.